section, we will be talking about the crucial genetic terminology. We will explain the next concepts, the key concepts about DNA, genes, and chromosomes. I know this topic can be quite complex, but we will try to use simple language, and as a result of this section, you will understand the foundations of genetics.
So, Sophia, we know that Duchenne muscular dystrophy is a genetic condition. And it is really, really important to understand what our genetic makeup is, what makes us unique, and who we are. But before we dive into what a gene is and its importance, it is really crucial to understand where it sits in the body. You know, where is the gene? What is this gene that everyone talks about, and where is it located in the body? So I just like to take a step back and just kind of zoom out and just explain that our body is made up of different sort of organ systems. We've got the gastrointestinal system, we've got the skeletal muscle system, we've got the cardiovascular system, the different systems in the body that are made up of very specialized organs. Like the stomach is an organ which sits in the GI system, and it has a very specialized role of sort of digesting food. Or the heart is an organ that sits in the cardiovascular system that has a very specialized sort of role of pumping blood throughout the body. So we've got we've got systems that are made up of specialized organs, and these organs are made up of specialized tissues that actually, know what they're doing. Like, for example, the tissues that line up the stomach don't digest in response to the acid that is being produced. They don't just disappear themselves. So that is what makes them unique and specialized in their role. So each system has its specialized organs. Specialized organs are made up of specialized tissues, and these specialized tissues are made up of billions and trillions of cells. The smallest living unit in the body is a cell, and our whole body is covered of these building blocks, these cells that come together to make a tissue, an organ, and those organs come together to make a system. And however, what makes these cells and tissues unique and specialized in their function? It is because in each of these cells, we have these long rod-like structures called chromosomes. And the chromosome, think of it as like a rod-like capsule that actually encloses the DNA inside it. So within each chromosome, in these trillions of billions of cells, there is DNA. And the DNA holds the genetic information, honestly, it's like almost like a genetic language, which says, make brown hair, make blue colored eyes. It holds the whole blueprint of us, and which makes us unique. And the DNA is just, and a little part of that is called a gene, basically. But we'll dive more into it, but I'm just trying to give you a little bit of a bigger picture at the moment of what we're looking at. How does our genetic blueprint make us unique and different? How do we all have different fingerprints? And that to me is really, really fascinating.
Wow, thank you, Maureen. That was beautifully explained, and I liked how you were zooming into from the whole human body into the tiniest piece of our cells, DNA and the gene. And like we talk about DNA, we know that I, for example, have green eyes because my father had green eyes, and I know that it was passed to me with the DNA, and now I have my own recipe manual. But moving on, we know that Duchenne muscular dystrophy is a genetic condition. So there is something going on with the genetic code, with the blueprint. And that is a change in the gene, the change in our recipe manuals that makes the dystrophin. So once you zoomed in into our cell, into our DNA, and into the small part of DNA, gene. So I would like to talk more about gene and explain what a gene is.
Absolutely. And again, I'm going to zoom out and say, before we go into the gene, let's talk about chromosomes, because chromosomes are these structures that hold genes inside them. It's important to understand chromosomes because if you recall, I can't actually recall if we mentioned it before, but Duchenne muscular dystrophy is an X-linked condition. that means that the recipe manual for it sits on the X chromosome. But it's important to explain chromosomes and how many are present in a cell, etc. So basically, we've just already established that chromosomes are like thread-like structures, which are found inside each of our cells in the body. Trillions of billions of cells all have chromosomes, and each of these cells contain 22 pairs of chromosomes, and one pair comes from our mum and one pair comes from our dad, and this makes a total of 46 chromosomes. And there are a pair of chromosomes that define what our sex is going to be. So everything else is basically what our hair color is going to be, what our color of our eye is going to be, how tall we're going to be, all of that sort of stuff, whether we're going to have curly hair or not. However, there is a pair in there that defines what sex we're going to be born with, whether we're going to be born a boy or whether we're going to be born a girl. And those are called X and Y chromosomes. And the recipe for the recipe manual for dystrophin sits on the X chromosome.
I just want to elaborate on that. And I want to say that human body has trillions of cells, and each of this cell has a unique genetic information. But what else do we need to know? So we know that every cell, almost every cell in our body, has a nucleus, and nucleus has a chromosome. So we need to explain what a chromosome is, because we know that Duchenne muscular dystrophy is a genetic condition. And there is a change in gene that sits in the chromosome, in the DNA. And this is the change in our recipe manual that makes dystrophin. That's why I would like to go further, zoom in more into the cell and talk about the chromosome.
Yeah, and I think it is really important to talk about chromosomes because they are the ones that are actually carrying the genetic information. So the rod-like structures inside each of our trillions of cells are the ones carrying the recipe manual or the blueprint. So it's really important to understand how many there are and what their role is. So I think I've already gone over it, that chromosomes are thread-like structures that hold the genetic information. They hold the DNA. And they are so do you want to talk about sort of the next bit about how many there are in the cell, or do you want me to?
Yes. I know you're really good with numbers, but I would love to discuss it. So we know that human body has 46 chromosomes. 22 pairs of autosomes, and these autosomes, they carry the general information about our body, what color our eyes are, whether we have curly hair or straight hair, even how our stomach will function. And the last pair, the 23rd pair of the chromosome set, it's called sex chromosome. And if you are born a boy, you have one X chromosome and one Y chromosome. If you are born a girl, you have two X chromosomes. And we know that Duchenne muscular dystrophy is a genetic condition, and the dystrophin gene sits on the X chromosome. That's why it's called an X-linked condition.
Absolutely, yeah. That is why we say Duchenne muscular dystrophy is X, just based on the fact that the gene that makes the dystrophin sits on the X chromosome, and it's linked to the sort of sex chromosome. And I would like to emphasize that each pair of chromosomes, so you've said we've got 46 chromosomes, we've got 23 pairs. Each sort of chromosome, each pair consists of one chromosome from each parent. So each of our parents give us one of the chromosomes. So we inherit half of our chromosomes from our mum and half of our chromosomes from our father. And I find it really fascinating that chromosomes can be observed under the microscope when the cell division occurs and the nucleus dissolves. So you can actually look at them down the microscope as well. So, but what I find fascinating is you are half your mum and half your dad. And that is why sometimes we inherit traits that, like you said, you have green colored eyes because your dad has green colored eyes. So that's how we inherit traits from each of our parents.
Yeah, and since we are talking about chromosomes, I found some interesting information. So there are a lot of papers that are discussing chromosomes, what they are, but they actually can be also stained in different colors when they are in the research papers or zoomed in the microscope. But it's not just this information. I also found where the term chromosome originates from. So it comes from the Greek words. For one is for color, which is chroma, and the other part is the body, which is soma. So chromosome, it's a colorful body.
Ooh, I actually didn't know that. That's really interesting. I actually also came across the unique structure of chromosome that allows DNA to be tightly wrapped around these proteins inside. So this chromosome that we're talking about, why are we talking about it, is present in trillions of cells of the body. And within these structures, these chromosomes, these 46 chromosomes sitting inside each of these cells, there is our DNA or recipe manual or blueprint tightly wrapped inside. And it's wrapped inside with the use of some other structural components that it tightly wraps around. And this packaging of DNA inside the chromosome helps keep the DNA molecules compact and enables them to fit inside cells really nicely. So you've got DNA packed inside chromosomes, chromosomes packed inside cells, loads of cells make up tissue, loads of tissues make up organs, loads of organs make up a specialized sort of system in the body. And can you imagine that if all the DNA molecules in a single human cell were unwound and placed end to end, they would stretch for 6 feet. That's quite
6 feet. That is unbelievable. First of all, how long it is, and secondly, that scientists have actually figured out how long it would be, because it's so tightly packed in the DNA. And by the way, speaking of the DNA, did you know that, of course you do, but I just want to emphasize that the chromosome contains a very, very specific genetic instruction that is encoded in our DNA, in our blueprint. It basically contains all the instructions that make us unique living creatures, right? And there's so many, like our skin, our eyes, our internal organs, how we digest things, how our heart functions. There's just so much different information. It's like a set of blueprint for our bodies. And as you mentioned, DNA is passed from parents to offsprings, and it plays such a crucial role in determining our traits, because we say, oh, you look like your mother, or you look like your father. Everything is encoded in a DNA which sits in the chromosome, which is passed from our parents, one from each parent.
Absolutely. Like the genetic world, DNA is extremely fascinating. And if we just focus on the X and Y chromosomes, they have very unique features. The sex chromosomes. When we're born, we inherit half of our chromosomes from our mother and the other half from our father, like I said before. Each pair of chromosome contains one chromosome from each parent. So we get a mix of traits from both of our parents, like you've said. So females, you've also mentioned, but I'd like to emphasize again that for females, we inherit an X chromosome from each parent. So in order to be a female, for me to be a female, my dad needs to give X chromosome and my mum needs to give an X chromosome, and X and X, that makes me a female. While males inherit a single X chromosome from their mum, and they inherit a Y chromosome from their dad.
Here at Action Duchenne, we are committed to inform, but also support you through your Duchenne journey. If you'd like to talk about anything raised in this video, please feel free to contact us on 07535 498 506, or alternatively, email us at info@actionduchenne.org. Thank you.